Hey, welcome back to the Maxwell Leadership Podcast. And I say welcome back because over 200,000 downloads this week will be by many of you. Your teams, your companies are all tuning in. And today I'm super excited. Now, if you're watching us on YouTube, and by the way, to go ahead and jump in, let me tell you, you want to today, maxwellpodcast.com/YouTube. You'll see sitting with me in the studio today is the founder of this podcast. And see, I say this every week. We are the podcast committed to adding value to leaders who multiply value to others. John, you've heard that a few times before.
Yeah, a few thousand, that's all, just a few thousand.
And that's because everything John has founded, from podcasts to companies to certification teams, it all is founded on the foundation that we exist to add value to you so that we will multiply value to others.
That's right.
Now, I'm sitting beside not only John Maxwell, the founder of the Maxwell Leadership Podcast, the founder of Maxwell Leadership Team, I'm sitting beside one of the most noted authors and one of the best communicators in the world. We all have been impacted by one of John's messages, I am sure. Today, we're celebrating yet again the fact that John has recently released a book called The 16 Laws of Communication. And today, John, if you don't mind, I would love to jump in and talk about the power of this book. And the way we're going to do that is, one, we've got some bonuses for you. We've got some things that I know that you will love. If you will go to maxwellpodcast.com/action, we're going to put the laws of communication in action in your life today. John, I'd love to start with this whole question. Does this book apply to people that are just standing in front of audiences, or would this also apply to people that has to communicate any message?
It applies to everyone. I mean, is there a day in anybody's life that they don't have to take time to talk, maybe a parent to their children, a school teacher to the class, somebody sitting around having dinner together? We're all communicating and trying to share with others thoughts, ideas, dreams that we have in our life. So every day we're spending time communicating. So what I say is, if you talk, this book's for you. Yeah. If you don't talk, don't get the book, okay? And Warren Buffett, as you know, said the most important skill that a person can learn to increase their self-worth and their net worth is the skill of communication. And so I'm committed to really helping all of our listeners, viewers today, learn how to connect, communicate better. And I know you are too. And that's why I'm so excited to be on the podcast with you.
Well, and I thought we'd take a little bit of a different angle, John. This podcast community is so large, 27 million downloads now. It's remarkable what you have been able to do and our message has been able to do through the podcast. One of the greatest things that we get as far as feedback from all of you is the authenticity. How what you see is what you get with John, what you see is what you get with myself and our co-host each and every week. And so, John, I thought we would dig into this book today using yours truly, myself, and the case study I am on communicating.
Yes, here we go.
And so if you enjoy my portion of the podcast, which is small compared to John and his content, that's because John Maxwell for the last 5 years has been mentoring me on pace. He's been mentoring me on effectiveness, on energy, on content, yes, on how to be a better speaker. And John, I was pretty bad at the beginning.
Yes, you were. but you know, it doesn't matter where you start. In fact, I think people put way too much emphasis upon where they start and way too little emphasis of how they're growing and developing. And you were already a good communicator, Mark. But because of who you are in your position, you had to raise your level of communication to be much more effective. So for the last 4 or 5 years, I have mentored Mark, and it's been a delight to watch you grow. I can still remember a couple years ago at Pebble Beach at our annual golf tournament for Equip there, and you stood up in front of the crowd and you talked the first evening, and I looked at you and I thought, he's got it. Now, there's still a lot of room for growth, but I understood that the basics of good, successful communication, you were now not understanding them, but you were doing it. And that was for a person that mentors people, is there anything greater for the teacher than to see their pupil do really well? So you have made great advancement in communication, and I can hardly wait for us to have kind of a student mentor kind of podcast here today, and tell me what you're learning and what in the book is helping you, and I'll try to put a little icing on the cake when I can.
Well, we're going to talk about 3 laws: the law of observation, the law of connection, and the law of results.
Yes.
And over the next 25 minutes or so, I want to relate with our podcast listeners. Those are out there that would look to you as their icon of how to communicate in large crowds. Those that would look to you and say, I want to make the person standing right in front of me feel like I'm the focus of their energy. And truly, whether you're in front of 1 or you're in front of 1,000, you have this incredible ability to communicate. So I'm going to relate to all of you in our podcast family today. And I spent hours this morning. I woke up early. I went through those 3 laws. I jotted questions down on the plane. I can promise you we will not get through all of my questions because I got about 20.
Yep.
But I'll save some of those for our mentoring session. I want to ask you my first question. You say, and by the way, if you got the book, I'm going to give you a chance to get the book a little bit later. But if you already have the book, on page 36, John, you're talking about stages of communication growth. And you make a statement here that says, when you say you became a great communicator by watching how other people said their message, what are some practical ways, those of us that are watching you and others communicate, what are some practical ways we can watch how someone delivers their message?
Yeah, Mark, that's a great question, and that's under the law of observation. And how I learned to communicate was watching other communicators. In fact, what happens is good communicators watch great communicators, and they learn how to do it. And when I would go hear someone speak, of course I would have my pad out to take notes because I'm looking for thoughts or ideas or content. But I'm looking way beyond what they say. I'm looking at who this person is, and I'm asking one question. This is what's going to help you. When the next time you listen to somebody speak, ask yourself one question: how do they connect with the audience? Now, that is the only question that I kept in my mind for probably at least 15 years when I was learning how to be a communicator. Every time somebody would speak, I would ask myself, how do they connect with the audience? And what I discovered was, first of all, a lot of times when people speak, they don't connect with the audience. Mm-hmm. So, and then I would turn that around and say, what is keeping them from connecting with their audience? So I'm always asking the question, how do they connect? Because if I can find that if I can develop that tool, find that secret, then I'm going to learn how to really connect and communicate with people. And what I discovered was that people that really connect with their audience are focused on the people that they're talking to, the audience. They're not focused on themselves. It's not about them. And so they're doing as little as possible to draw attention to themselves, or do as much as possible to connect and add value to those people. I noticed that they had different personalities, they had different temperaments, and I would watch them. If you're old like I am, when Walter Cronkite did the news, they put a tight picture in on him, and he always looked at the people, and he created intimacy. And I said, he connects through intimacy. You know, John F. Kennedy, if you look at him in the Nixon debate, you'll watch John Kennedy was so self-assured and so relaxed, and Nixon was tight, and you could just, when Nixon spoke, you felt pressure for him. It's kind of like you wanted to help him. And when JFK talked, it was like he was talking to you on the back porch where you're having a glass of lemonade together. And so what I found is that the great communicators are very natural, and they are very much focused on the people, and they're very confident that what they're saying is going to add value to the people, and the person that listens to them can see it. But different personalities, different temperaments. It's not like one personality, one temperament, or even one pace. But it's the fact that they have gotten over themselves, and they just say, it's all about the audience, not about me.
Well, you say this, you say there's 4 stages of communication growth. And for those of you, again, that don't have the book, I'm telling you, what I love about this book is not only do you give great stories, you give practical ways. That's why we called the hashtag action to this whole podcast link, because you said, I worked, number 1, your first stage of communication growth, you said, I worked to learn the basics of good speaking was where I am. This where I was. It's an inside job. Do you remember I was getting ready to speak to 3,000 people. It was early in your mentoring. I was, by the way, empathize with me a minute. I was holding John Maxwell's microphone. I was standing in John Maxwell's spotlight on John Maxwell's stage, and I was getting ready to speak to 3,000 people. No pressure, but John doesn't understand that. That's pressure, gang. Does anybody feel me right now? And I'm getting ready to go out, and I'm uptight, and I still have not got this knack. And you said, Mark, do you understand there's not another communicator in the world that can stand on stage and say, I've traveled the world with John Maxwell, and I've watched him lead and communicate when no one else was around that
You're the only one.
You gave me some kind of identity, and I remember going to that, and I've stood on that ever since. As a communicator, you need to get inside of you and determine what authority you stand on.
Yeah, what is my uniqueness? Yeah, what is the ground on which I can stand when I speak? And I gave you that day. You're the only person that could say, really, what I'm going to teach you today, I've observed firsthand in John's life. And that puts you in a very unique position. It also established some authority and credibility for you, so now the people can lean in. Because when you're talking about it's tough to stand on my stage, it's because the people came to hear me.
Yeah.
And so I understand the fact that they didn't come to hear you. I don't mean that wrong.
They didn't.
And so it's like the time when I spoke at a conference and Superman literally got sick and couldn't show up, and I had to take Superman's place out on the stage. That was a catastrophe. But I understand that. But that day I gave you ground to stand on as a communicator that gave you a confidence that you could say something that no one else could say.
Yeah.
And that also lets people lean in. The moment you say that, they're ready to lean in because, Mark, you've seen things no one else has seen. So it gives you a step into that connecting area.
And it gave me a confidence, and you've always said this, and you say this in the book, that when someone walks up and is confident, they give confidence to the audience.
Oh, yes.
When they walk up insecure,
Yes.
they give insecurity to the audience.
Yeah. The people read the speaker, and what the speaker feels is what the people feel. And we've all have it. I mean, think about it. You that are watching or listening to the podcast right now, how many times have you heard a speaker as they talked? You begin to pull for them because they really weren't that good. And you're kind of, okay, you can do this. And, so the spirit of which I enter that stage is the spirit of which the people will receive in the seats in the audience.
Leaders, you know better than anyone that growth is essential if you want to make tomorrow better than today. But fitting growth into your calendar takes intentionality and self-discipline. So, let Maxwell Leadership help make your growth achievable. You're invited to join thousands of worldwide leaders in using the Maxwell Leadership Growth Plan. The Maxwell Leadership Growth Plan provides you with convenient and easy to implement leadership resources, including video lessons from John Maxwell, all at your fingertips. Available in our Maxwell Leadership app or online, you'll be coached by many well-known leadership experts that will help you achieve your growth goals. You can even listen to this podcast right there in the app. Check it out for free today at growth.maxwellleadership.com. That's growth.maxwellleadership.com.
So let's go to the next law. Well, it's not the next law in the book. It's law number 7, actually. Page 127 for those of you that have grabbed your book. The law of connection. Communicators know it's all about others. You make a statement. It's in bold. For those of you watching on YouTube, it's right there. It's in bold. It is highlighted for me. It's in bold for all of us. It says the law of connecting is by far the most important idea in this book. Why is that?
Well, because you can say a lot, but if the people aren't connected with you, it doesn't register with them. They walk out unchanged. And so nothing happens until the communicator connects. Nothing happens. Well, I mean, time happens, and after 30, 40 minutes, you get to go home. But honestly, it's like somebody said one time, what happens if the whole audience falls asleep? What are you going to do? I said, I go wake up the speaker. It's a speaker problem. It's not an audience problem. You hear speakers say, well, that was a bad audience. There's no such thing as a bad audience, good audience. They're just bad or good communicators. And so it's very essential that we connect with the people, because that's They carry the message that connects with them. They don't carry a message that doesn't connect with them. They just never do.
Yeah. You go on page 128 and you say, will you make the connection? It's a riveting question. Again, I love the practical approach you took this book. You said, people who focus on themselves seek to gain attention.
Yeah.
Speakers who focus on content seek to give information.
Yeah.
And then finally, communicators who focus on others make a connection.
That's the way it works.
Is it natural for leaders to have all of those or have to work through those? Is it natural? I know I look at those, John, and every one of those. You remember I used to the louder people applauded, the more I'd come off stage and say, I nailed it, didn't I, John? You'd go, no, you really didn't. Your screaming and getting them to clap was not applause for gratitude. It was applause for the white flag. Please stop, right?
Well, no, it wasn't that bad, but you were a cheerleader more than a communicator.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And you just needed a megaphone. That's the only thing you were lacking up there.
Yes.
So, and I'm trying to help you to become. Here's what I learned a long time ago: if you connect with the people, they'll cheer.
Yeah.
Or they'll cry. Or they'll change. There's something that will happen. Some action will take place when you really do connect with the people. But as a communicator, Mark, what I want for our whole audience is for you to say words. If the words were important enough for you to include in your talk, then they're important enough for the people to be connected with them. So the question is not, what words do I have in my talk? The question is, how do I connect with the audience till those words become my words? It's the difference between people when I'm done saying John's an amazing communicator and people when I'm done saying I can do that.
Yeah.
And we want them to say, I can do that.
This next phase, John, was one that was really hard for me, and you're going to remember this. Sorry, audience, you're getting to hear John mentor me up front and close, but to get it done with my talk. Remembering, I would talk. The faster I got, the shorter my time left, the faster I would talk. And you said, "Why are you talking so fast?" I said, "I had a lot more points I needed to make." And you went, "Your audience is done before your points are done."
Oh yeah, you were amazing. Yeah, you would start at about 50 miles an hour, but your last 3 or 4 minutes, you were at 120. And most people, they were just trying to remember what you were saying as far as the word. If they could just get the words, they were happy because you were going but you were trying to finish your content. Why? Because you were content oriented. Your focus was, I want to finish the content. Your focus wasn't, I want to connect with the people.
Yeah.
And to connect with the people, you can say half of what you had in the content and connect with people. In fact, what I teach people is the moment you see them leaning in and connecting, that's the moment you want to stay right where you are and let it work and work it and let it kind of be given to the people through that process of time. You don't want to rush to anything. I would rather spend 15 minutes and find the connection point and then spend the next 10, 15 minutes there and be done than to say, well, I know we're really connecting right now, but I've got other content here for you. And it's kind of like you leave what you were doing really well and you go back to what you're trying to finish off. But you've learned that, you've really learned that well. I'm watching you now, and you're much less, I've got to get through my content, and where do I connect and how do I stay there?
It was the same event, John, speaking to 3,000 people. And we had another speaker, very, very well-known author. We love his books, but he was communicating that year, and he had 48 slides in 32 minutes.
Oh my goodness!
And this individual will remain unnamed because he's a friend. But you use that as an example and say, did you see how he had to get through all of his slides because he wanted to get his content? And the people, about 15 minutes into the 35 minute, their tongues were hanging out. They finally just set their pen down and said, "Hopefully, I'll get the follow-up."
The slides were coming so fast, I got vertigo. I'm sitting in my seat, and the room's spinning around just a little bit. But you couldn't keep up. But see, his idea of a successful talk was, I finished.
Yeah. My
idea of a successful talk, and what this book is all about, is the people felt that you connected with them. That it's all about that. But again, I've watched you make remarkable progress on that. You're doing a lot better. less is really more normally.
You say in the book, page 132, for those that are reading, you said there's 4 keys to connecting with others. And key number 1 is realizing that you're not the main attraction. Okay, you remember that. Here's my specific question, though, to you. When you're the leader or the expert, so you're the leader leading a group of 5 or 10 people in a boardroom, or you're the expert, you're the subject matter expert on stage, how do you resist this temptation that you should have all the answers and know all the answers and therefore come across like you know your stuff rather than thinking that, or counter that with me that I'm not the main attraction, but sometimes I'm tempted to feel like I am supposed to have all the answers?
Well, I'm amused because nobody has all the answers. So when a person thinks that they should have all the answers, they're delusional. I don't look at any person and feel that they are Mr. Answer Man or Mrs. Answer Woman. I mean, there are so many things I don't know. And again, we lose our effectiveness with our people when we try to give them a fake answer instead of an honest, I'm still working on that myself, and I'm not there yet. And I think that goes back to authenticity of a leader in the fact that there's something very connecting when I'm listening to somebody and they're very vulnerable and they're very open and they're just saying, you know, what I'm talking about right now, I'm working through myself. And I'm not yet arrived, but let me, if it's okay, let me give you my journey. Let me tell you where I am. Yeah. And immediately, I mean, because nobody in that audience thinks they have their act together. None of us. So why should the speaker act like he or she has their act together? The moment that you tell me you have your act together and I don't, I've already lost the connection with you. But the moment you say, I'm working through some things, I'm leaning in because I'm working through some things. Yeah. And I'm saying, oh, if he's working through things, I'm working through things, he's going to give me some things to work through that are going to help me. That's the connection you're looking for.
Yeah. It leads right into the 4th key that you have on connecting others is be personable.
Yeah.
And I just wish that maybe you would tell myself and maybe some of the audience, what are some of the ways that you can become at ease with yourself?
You know, this is probably the biggest frustration I have in communication because I am at ease with myself.
You are.
Very much at ease. And sometimes I don't know how to transfer that over to other people. So let me give you 3 thoughts and hopefully I'm not saying it's going to get you there, but I can tell you it'll start moving you there. First of all, I think you have to value yourself. I'm not wanting you to be arrogant, but I think that you have to believe that you're a person of value and that when you go out to communicate to people, you have something valuable to communicate. So I think there's a self-belief that makes you at ease with yourself. I think there's also an awareness. And I think that people are not at ease with themselves mostly because they're not aware of all of their dysfunction and all of their issues. And I'm very aware that I don't have my act together, and there are a whole bunch of things in my life that I don't do well at all, and it doesn't bother me to say I don't do that well, or I'm not good at that, or that's something I've never been able to do well in. So I think that to be at ease with yourself, you have to be able to be aware, which allows you to. I accept that. I just accept that I don't have all the answers, or I accept that somebody else is better than me. Of course, somebody's better than us in every area of life. So I think there's an awareness that comes. I think there's a value in yourself. And then I think this third thing is so important, is that I believe truly that I have the answer that can help people. And that makes me very comfortable with myself, that I'm giving them something that's going to be an asset. I mean, I think if you would tell the average person, you're going to say something or do something today that's going to add value to a person, I think they could hardly wait to go out and do that because they felt, I'm going to go add value to people. Well, when I get up to speak, I believe I was born to do this. I believe it's a lot of natural giftedness. Of course, I've worked on it. But I truly believe when I look at somebody and I start teaching, I believe that I can that what I say can improve their life. And you can't fake that. And one of the reasons I believe it will improve their life is because it's improved my life. And so the credibility, when somebody says, well, why do you think that'll work for me? I say, well, it worked for me. And I'm just trying to pass it on as a friend to you too. Hopefully it'll work for you. And I think those 3 things are really, really important. But I think lack of awareness. I think people who take themselves too seriously, honestly, are not aware of their blind spots and shortcomings. I just think that when I know all of my sins in life and weaknesses in life and issues in life, it just kind of helps me to be a little kinder to someone else and a little bit more connected to where they are, because they're going through the same stuff that I'm going through.
It's so interesting. I love to tell my daughter stories or my grandkids stories. They all performed on stage yesterday at a little event they were at. And
that was fun.
It was awesome. I asked and they sent us videos. We were not there. We were out of town. So they sent us videos, and my oldest two grandsons, I asked them how it was, and they said, "Oh, it was nervous. I don't know that I had a good time. I don't know that I did a good job." Now, they were singing to a track. Their mic was off. So there's very little pressure there, but they felt the pressure there in front of 17 people. That's what my oldest grandson said. He said there was 17 people out there.
Oh, yeah.
And but my youngest grandson, Emery, he's 4. He had sunglasses on. He had his collar turned up. He never stopped dancing. I'll have to show you the video afterwards. I said, "Emery, how was it?" He said, "It was the best time I've ever had." The boy took the show and never felt the stress of the other ones. And you could look in this video, the ones who felt stress, the ones that didn't. But you could also see the one that was being personable, the one that was just comfortable, the one that was just having a good time because he felt like he had some entertainment value in him, and he gave entertainment value.
Oh, that's a fun story.
I think that Emery probably was you at 4 or 5 years old.
That's a fun story. Well, somebody said one time, you really can't be funny if you don't have fun.
Yes.
And I think that's very true. You show me a person that doesn't have fun, they're not funny.
Yeah.
And I think it's true in communication. If you don't have fun communicating and sharing and believe it's going to help people, then I guess I would get uptight, or I guess I don't know, I would feel some tension. But the moment you realize that we're experiencing this together, and we're going to do a little journey together. That's why I always tell the communicators, don't put the audience out in front of you. I know that's where they are. Let the audience sit beside you.
Yeah.
There's a whole different feel when you and I are together and we're just kind of sharing and enjoying each other, or when you're out there and I'm teaching you something. And I think Emery's kind of got it right. I think that you need to go to the Emory School of Communication there. He's on to something.
So let's finish our time with the law of results. It's law number 16.
Sure.
And that says the greatest success in communication is action, getting something done as a next
Totally.
step. You make a statement here on page 285. You said, if your motive for speaking is anything other than adding value to people and moving them to take positive action that will help them, you're missing the boat.
Totally.
Why do you say that? Why are you putting so much emphasis on that?
Because it's true.
Yeah.
Because if your motive is not to add value to people and have them take action, you are missing the boat. Because think about it. Why are you spending all your time, and where are the people coming and spending all their time to hear you if it's not to improve their life? You know, Mark, there just is no success without action. Mm-hmm. I mean, there just isn't. So, you know, as a communicator, what am I asking myself? What do I want them to know? What do I want them to do? And if I just ask, what do I want them to know? There's no success, perhaps, in just knowledge alone. It's always in the action. Action takes knowledge and makes it worthwhile and meaningful. And so, as a communicator, yes, I think the test, if somebody's saying, what's your final exam as a communicator? I think it's very simple. What I taught, I connected with the people, and they applied it to their life. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, I think, hey, success. Just as if they didn't apply it to their life, I think we all wasted our time, because we don't need another message in life. We need to have positive change in life. And, you know, action, it's a word that we know and hear so much, but you have to act to succeed. There's no person that ever thought their way to success. Mm-hmm. Nobody ever hoped their way to success. They had to act. They had to move. So, yes, I want them, when I'm done, I want them to do something. I think great communicators lay it out on here's what you do. I mean, I think they even make that action part, you know, like step 1, step 2.
Well, you said this, what do you want them to know? What do you want them to do? You ask these 3 questions you talk about in another part of the book. on your question that you ask before you talk, during the talk, am I impacting them, and did I create an impact for them? You're constantly assessing.
Yes.
And you're not using enthusiasm. So many of us, you said this, you said your enthusiasm and excitement may cause people to think about their dreams, but it won't be sufficient to move people into action. So just to cause them to think, how do we as communicators, whether it's in a small group or in a big auditorium, how do we ensure that we move people to action? It's certainly not the emotion of the crowd.
It's a great question. And I think the mistake we've made for so long is that we equate an emotional response to the fact that they're going to do it. And yet, how many times do we know people who in the moment are emotional and they feel it and they say yes, but it cools off. But by the time they're at the car in the parking lot and they're pulling out, it's a maybe, and by the time they're home, it's a sometime. And I think that people don't take action based on emotion. They take action based on conviction. I take action when I am convinced that this action is going to help me. It's going to make me a better person. And that's not emotional at all. That's somebody who has connected with me in such a way that I related to them, and how they said they did and how I can do it seems to be palatable and compatible, and so therefore I really do it. I would rather have my pauses and my silence and let people absorb and think. I think a thinking person, when they take action, that action is much more solid than an emotional person, even if they take action. Because if you're emotional and you take action, the moment the emotion wears off, you're back out of the game.
Yeah.
And I just want to help people. I want to help people come to the conclusion in their life that this is best for them. It's not even come to the conclusion that this is what I want for them, but this is best for them. And any way I can communicate that, Mark, to them, that's going to have the return that we're looking for, buddy.
Yeah, there's so much more. I have so many more questions. We're gonna wrap, but I do want to say, I'm going to give you a chance to just kind of wrap the impact and what you hope from this book. I do want to ask you just one quick follow-up. When you are assessing how well you did at connecting with the audience, and you're one of the most intuitive communicators I've ever seen. You're sitting up there and you notice when somebody wipes their nose. You would notice when somebody checks a text message.
Totally.
You notice. So you're intuitive at reading the crowd. How do you know at the end that you've really added value?
Well, I think that because I can't go home with them, I don't think I could ever know for sure that I added value until I got to see if they took action on it. But I think the answer that I can give you, because we don't get that privilege. I don't get the privilege of getting in the car and going home with them. So when you ask, how do I know? Here's what I do. I know when I communicate something to people when they buy into it.
Yeah.
And they buy into it not just by assent. There's a sense that what I'm saying is true and real and right. And I can tell when they have bought into it, which tells me that the odds have increased, that they're going to do something about it. I'm responsible to people. I'm not responsible for people. So as a communicator, I'm responsible to give them the way to succeed. That's my responsibility. Mm-hmm. If I fail to deliver that, I've come short. And I want to do it in such a way that although I'm not responsible for them, I have nudged them in that direction. But they're responsible for themselves. And I'm sure there have been times when I thought people bought into a lesson I gave them and they didn't go out and finish off. And I'm probably sure that there's been sometimes I thought, boy, I don't think I did very well there, and they did. So it's hard. The communicator has to live in the moment, what I see and what I experience right now. 3 weeks later, the communicator could have a readout on whether that the people really bought into it or not, because if you don't take action, you didn't buy into it.
Yep.
Yeah, that's why I say ask for commitment. The only time you know when a person's the real deal is if you ask them for commitment, and that separates the players from the pretenders at all times. So I'm doing everything I can to get them to that point of commitment, but I'm responsible to make it as good as I can, but then they're responsible to make the commitment.
Well, you certainly have made an impact in my life and in my communication with the principles in this book. I know many of you in our podcast family, you too would say that John Maxwell has helped you to communicate better. Those of you that this is your first podcast, you've joined us, or maybe those of you that have yet to pick up John's book, I won't tell on you, but he's sitting right here. You need to go get the book.
Tell on him, Mark. Tell on him.
And you can do that at 16laws.maxwellleadership.com. We'll put that in the show notes, 16laws.maxwellleadership.com. But there's something else that I've got to tell you. In 2 days, if you're listening to this podcast on time, if you're listening to this podcast the day it releases, in 2 days,
yes,
on May the 5th, John is starting for the first time ever a book club, 3 sessions that he's going to teach in this. It won't be an interview necessarily like this. It will be him teaching on the laws of communication, and you can get access to that book club by going to bookclub.maxwellleadership.com. Now, our one request is you buy 5 books and bring 5 people that you want to up their game in communication as well. So you can buy 5 books and then you'll get 5 passes to this 3-session book club that John is starting on May 5th. Now, you might say you're a little bit behind. You caught the podcast a few days late. That's okay. If you join between now and the last session, June the 2nd, if you join in any time, we will give you all 3 of the sessions. We'll put those in your inbox. You'll be able to listen to all 3 of them and be a part of the book club. So go to bookclub.maxwellleadership.com to be a part of this incredible, once-in-a-lifetime opportunity on this book. So we're so excited.
Oh.
John, thank you for being here today.
So excited. I am very excited. Can you think of anything better than to go buy 5 books and get your 5 players on your team and say, let's be with John for 3 different sessions on the book, and let's learn together and let's grow together. I mean, what a gift to your team to get them on our book club. So I hope do that, please. I want to see y'all. We'll pull back the curtains and I'll give you the behind the scenes stuff on the book, and you'll have a good time, and I'll have a great time. I know.
John, congratulations on book number 88.
88.
The 16 undeniable laws of communication. Apply them and make the most of your message. Pick it up. Join us on the book club. Hey, you know why we do this? We do this because we want you to be a powerful, positive change agent in your world, because everyone deserves to be led well.
That's right.